Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We are really pleased to have with us today Jeff Jervik, who's a graduate of the class of 1984 from Dakota Wesleyan with a Bachelor of Arts degree in education and some background in business at that time. Jeff is recognized this year as our distinguished Opperman Lecture. This is an endowed opportunity for us to bring back an alum who has given back to his community and to the world through business and service. And I think you'll find today that Jeff exemplifies that in many respects. He currently serves as the president and CEO of WellBiz Brands, where he leads the overall strategic direction of one of the largest and fastest growing health and wellness companies in the United States. And many of you I know are student athletes, so you'll hopefully have some insight into the next trends in fitness and what's evolving after hearing Jeff talk today. Under WellBiz Brands, there are currently 3 franchise organizations, and his responsibilities include growing and supporting Fitness Together, Elements Massage, and Fit 36 Brands. Jervik joined the organization in 2008 and succeeded Rick Sikorsky, the company's founder. Among the 3 franchise organizations, WellBiz supports nearly 400 independently owned and operated studios in the health and wellness industry under his leadership. With more than 3 decades of franchise experience, Jervik's career began as the manager of a Pizza Hut in Madison, South Dakota, before being promoted up the ladder at PepsiCo, culminating with his title as National Vice President of Operations for Pizza Hut. He also became an operating partner for Papa John's in Hawaii and was the Executive Vice President of Operations for Krispy Kreme Donuts. What I can tell you from having met Jeff is while he has an outstanding list of accomplishments, he's just really a super person, a superhuman being, and that comes across in the ways he interacts with everyone. So please join me in welcoming our alum from the class of '84, Jeff Jervik.
Thank you, President Novak, and also the Opperman Endowment. Amazing that 19 years that this endowment has been able to bring people back to campus again and be able to talk about all the things that they've done with their careers. And my career has been, I would just start off with saying, very blessed. Blessed career that I've had and the opportunities that I've had, and I'm glad that I have the opportunity to share with you. Now, I had all these notes today that, you know, I always sit down and I write everything out before, you know, that I have to get up and speak and what I all want to say, and so I don't miss anything. And then I see some of my old high school friends, old roommates and such in here, and I said, well, I better throw these notes away because they might not all be factual. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, we're sticking to the facts. So I really won't go into the notes. So what I'd like to really start with today, though, is I want to tell you or show you a video about our 3 brands. It lasts only about 3 minutes, but it's something that I'm very proud of right now, and it's really what gets me jazzed about getting up in the morning and going to work every day. So I'm going to start with that, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about WellBiz, and then of course I have to do the advertising portion of this, right? So I have to advertise the business, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how a non-fitness guy, right, you know, got to running a fitness company. So let's start here. so I really can run the computer. So why WellBiz Brands? You probably, if you didn't read my bio, I spent almost 30 years, mostly in food, 22 of them anyway, selling everything from pizza to tacos to chicken to donuts, right? And so I just figured it was probably time that I better find something healthy if I was going to continue to be able to keep the pace of what I was doing. So let me tell you a little bit about how I got to WellBiz, and then I'll go back a little bit in my history. But 7.5 years ago, I was an investor in a private equity fund based out of New York that was primarily in healthcare, and they had decided that they wanted to get into franchising. And once you hear a little bit about franchising, you know, and to be a franchisor, which supports the franchisees, you had to wonder why they'd want to go into that type of business. But they did. They bought it from the founder, who had founded Fitness Together. And I came along, they bought the company in 2006. I came along in 2008 because the company just wasn't going very well. The Fitness Together model wasn't performing like it needed to perform. And the Elements Massage, which was really just starting, which by the way I'll brag a little bit, it's the second largest massage retail franchise company now in the United States behind, how many people have heard of Massage Envy? Anybody? Few, yeah. There's one over in Sioux Falls, I guess. But you know, that model wasn't working very well either. And so a little bit about my history is that I really became known, I guess, as someone that would go in and clean things up when things weren't running well. And so during my PepsiCo career, which I'll go into, as well as Krispy Kreme, and even when we opened up Hawaii with Papa John's, it was really going into challenging situations. I wanted to share with you, though, real quickly, just the structure, the capital structure. In June of this year, we actually sold the company. The management, it was somewhat of a management-led buyout, and we found a partner that happened to be right down the road in Cherry Creek, Colorado, Denver, and KSL Partners. KSL Partners, much different than what we partnered with before, but here's a little bit about them. Their investment sectors are hospitality, recreation, clubs, real estate, travel, and services. And here's some of their properties. They have one in Tucson. I was telling the Thompsons that they have Mirabal Resort down there, Espa in the United Kingdom, as well as the St. Regis, which I was just out there in Monarch Beach with their redoing. What they do is they go into properties that are distressed. So for example, the St. Regis sits in Dana Point. It's right on the beach, beautiful property, somewhat historic area right next to the Ritz-Carlton, but never had run very well. They're putting $100 million into that facility alone just to take it to the next level. The Belfry, which is very historic, people that have been across the pond. And then here's some examples. They've had La Costa, the Grove Park Inn in Asheville. If you've ever been out to Asheville, North Carolina, that's a beautiful property. They turned around the James Royal Palm in Miami. They own the JW Marriott Essex. And then the Villages that they just acquired not long ago in 2014. Some of the properties that they've actually sold. Club Corp, which manages golf courses primarily, that was owned by them. They took it through an IPO and just recently sold their 33% share in that, Western Athletic Club. And then here's kind of some favorites for the ski buffs out there. They own Squaw Valley, as well as they're a major investor in Whistler Blackcomb up in British Columbia, which is probably one of the even being a Coloradan, it's probably one of the finest areas to ski in the world. So, and here's kind of an investment history of them. So what was interesting to me about KSL was that they understood hospitality, they understood people, they understood membership, and if you don't know, all of our concepts have a membership component to it. So for example, if you are a member of Elements Massage, you pay so much per month, and you get one massage per month. More if you want. We hope people come more often. And the same way with our fitness businesses as well have a membership component of it. So they're really good partners for us. So that's a little bit about who I'm with now, but now I'll tell you a little bit about how I got there. My history, I was not born here in Mitchell, but from about 5, I'll have to look back at my mom, she'll know, 5 or 6 years old, that we moved here. My grandparents had also lived here and were raised in this area, and so I went all through high school. I graduated in 1974, so it's been about 40, yeah, I guess it's over 40 years now. 40 years ago, and I always tell people, this is the best place ever to grow up. There's no better place to grow up here. How many people are from Mitchell? A lot of hands, good, good. How many people from South Dakota? Now a lot of hands in here. You're fortunate, because it is a great place to be able to say that you come from there. It's interesting, when people ask me where I come from, they'll ask the question, so, where are you from? South Dakota, and their usual response is, wow, I've never met anybody from South Dakota. And that's kind of neat, right? Because you're from a place that not everybody has been, and so you get to brag about a little bit. But what's interesting about Mitchell, I was telling the table at lunch, is what's interesting about Mitchell, they'll say, well, where in South Dakota? And I'll go, Mitchell, South Dakota. And I'm going to explain to them that it's about 67 miles west of Sioux Falls, but before I can, they go, oh, that's where the Corn Palace is at, right? So you got to be proud of the Corn Palace. The Corn Palace, puts the dot on the map for Mitchell. So anyway, I graduated in '74, and I guess I decided I was going to go to college. Now, you got to know that I wasn't a great student in high school. In fact, it was quite. You can ask my mom. I think they actually took my diploma to make sure it was signed the day of that I was actually going out of high school. And but I decided I wanted to go to college, and I went to Black Hills State, and I also spent a little bit of time at USD. But I found that it just wasn't the right path for me at the time. And so, of all things, of course, I had an entrepreneurial background in my family. I had my mom and dad were actually in business here, and my grandfather and my great-grandfather and grandmother, and they were in the bar, liquor store type business. So I guess I had always thought that running a bar would be a great opportunity. And there's some of them in here that have had a few beers around my bar. It was called Sporty's, and it was right down on Main Street, kind of kitty corner from the Corn Palace, actually. And it was a great experience. It was fun to be, of course, when you're 21, 22 years old, and everybody's coming to your house for the party every night. It's not a bad place to be. And I really, enjoyed that part of my life, but it was something else that I knew that I wasn't meant to do. And it wasn't about that I didn't want to stay in Mitchell. It was more, that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I decided that I wanted to go back to school, and I wanted to get my degree. But I didn't know really what I wanted to do, and I had a friend that I had known since middle school, and he was a teacher in Mitchell Public Schools. He was teaching, I believe at that time, 6th grade. And I saw how happy that he was to get up and go and go to work every day, and I thought, wow, that's something that I've never found yet. I've never found something that I really could get my arms wrapped around. And so I went and kind of did a little more homework. I went and I observed in some classrooms and so on and so forth, and I decided that I would go back to school. And I decided that I wanted to be an elementary ed teacher. And so I started off back in Wesleyan, I guess that was in 1982. And so keep in mind, going from the bar, then going from someone that wasn't a very good student, that I don't even know how I got in here, actually, the way my grades were, but I did, I got in. And I met a woman by the name of Dr. Teresa Bross, who I've talked with some of the faculty here since I've been here this morning that remember Teresa. She was the chair of the education department at the time. Great woman. And in fact, if it wasn't for her, I'm not sure that I would have, probably stuck it out. She, for some reason, kind of was playing a maternal type of role with me, and I needed that, I think, to get myself through get myself through school. But she kept me interested. And you know, it was the first time in my life that I ever got good grades. I'm serious. It was like I actually was getting A's, and I never had seen A's before. So you know, this was something that was new for me, but it didn't seem like it didn't seem like work at all. It just seemed like something that I was meant to do. So anyway, graduate, and you know, very excited. Wanted to go out and get that first teaching job. So I went and I started interviewing. Well, I started in the Mitchell School District, and I don't know if there's anybody that's here from the school district, but probably because of my notorious past, I was having a hard time getting a job in the Mitchell School District. No, but it was a really difficult district to get into, and so I started interviewing in some small towns around the area, and I got offered a couple of jobs. Now again, you got to go back 40 years, but I know with teaching, teaching as far as the salaries and such, I know it's starting to get better, but in my opinion, it's got to get a lot better than what it is today yet even. But I remember my first offer was $9,500, and they said if I coached 2 sports that I'd make $1,500 more. So I'm trying to think, how in the heck am I going to do this when I got school loans and I got other responsibilities? How am I going to make this work? And I just knew that I couldn't do it. I knew I needed to find something else. So I thought about the bar business again. I thought about, gosh, maybe going into the restaurant business. I mean, I'd like restaurant, restaurant bar. That's what, maybe a steakhouse type thing. I had all these, I don't know how I was going to get the money, but I had all these grand ideas. And so I had heard from someone that told me that there was, that Pizza Hut was actually owned by PepsiCo. And PepsiCo, which owns Pepsi-Cola and Frito-Lay and so on and so forth. At that time, back in the 80s, they had Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC. So they said they had a great management training program. So I went in and I decided, what the heck, I need a job. And so I just started off as an hourly, they called it an hourly assistant manager, but I think it really was like a shift manager type position. How many people have worked in restaurants? That's some time, a few. So anyway, I thought I'm just going to go through their training program, and then I'll find something. I'll find something else to do. And this was in 1984. So the next thing I knew, I had got promoted to a salaried assistant manager. So I actually knew what my check was going to be each week. And then about 3 months later, I was promoted to an assistant manager, and I had to move to Brookings, South Dakota. And I'll still never forget the first time at Hobo Days, and I'd just been there about a month, and I got to stay on track here because I will go off on stories. But anyway, it's Hobo Days, and I'm wearing this goofy little, brown polyester pants with a visor and a little vest and a little clip-on tie, and that type of thing. And of course, all my buddies showed up for Hobo Days, came in there to harass me and told me what an idiot I looked like. But I ended up making it through, and in Brookings, I was there for about 3 months, and actually they asked me, and President Novak mentioned this, they asked me to be a restaurant manager. And so I thought, Madison, South Dakota. That's in Madison, South Dakota. Dakota State College, right? So Madison, South, is it even called that yet?
Yeah, it's university.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So anyway, I started to be the manager in Madison, South Dakota. So let's fast forward. I'm there for almost about a year. And it was actually Madison was a great little town. And I met a lot of great people there. But a special thing happened one day. And this is really about being in the right place at the right time. Is that there was a van that pulled up. And it was a 12-passenger van. And these people all show up in the right at lunchtime. And we're getting clobbered, it's busy, and they come in and they want us to put tables together and stuff, and I knew right away they weren't from Madison. I mean, I can tell you that. I mean, there was some diversity there, which there wasn't a lot of diversity in Madison, but there was some diversity among the group that was there, and they stayed all the way through lunch, and then all of a sudden it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and my shift manager at the time, her name was Kitty, and Kitty said, we got to get him out of here. We got to get ready for dinner. Yeah, what are you going to do? You can't kick him out. Well, all of a sudden, one of the guys motions over to have me come over and sit down with them, and I'm wondering what's going on. Well, it was the president and CEO of Pizza Hut, chief operating officer, chief marketing officer, kind of their entourage, were there. And they had been touring, not around just South Dakota, but been touring in general around the country because they wanted to see what people really thought, not just the consumer, but also what did the employees think of working at Pizza Hut. Well, the next thing I knew, they had offered me that same day, they said that was the best experience that they had had at any of their Pizza Huts they'd been out. And they asked me to move to Wichita, Kansas to be the flagship restaurant manager, which in those days meant that it was the Pizza Hut that was right next to home office where all the commercials were shot and all the franchisees came in there. It was the place where everyone came to see Pizza Hut. And so all of a sudden, I'm living in Wichita, Kansas, and I'm still thinking, I'm still going to find this bar someplace that I'm going to run. No way am I going to stick around and continue to do this. It was the largest revenue restaurant in the system, and just to give you kind of an idea, a normal Pizza Hut would have like 2 assistant managers and manager. This had 15 assistant managers and a co-manager that I had that worked for me. So it was quite a big business. And so I had great opportunities there. I mean, obviously I got to meet franchisees that had been around since the beginning of the system. I got to meet the founders of Pizza Hut because they lived in Wichita. But more importantly, I met a gentleman that was the founder of Pepsi-Cola that would come in for the reviews. They do quarterly business reviews, and he would come in and he would just want to sit in my restaurant and he wanted to just chat and find out what I thought about the new products and what was going on with the business and the customers and those types of things. And that's what really kind of started to launch my career. I did everything from being a manager. I became a training manager, which kind of brought me back to some teaching roots, right? Became a training manager to other managers. I became a multi-unit manager where I oversaw a number of locations. I moved into home office where I got the opportunity of all things. I was named vice president of this longest title I ever had, new process something commercialization. I can't remember what was all on the card. It was like 3 lines long. And what my job was that actually it was my group that took marketing's idea for a product and commercialized it so it would work in the restaurant. So I had no idea about engineering. I had no idea about food scientists. But I did know how to run projects, and I knew how to work with people, and I knew enough to know when to keep my mouth shut and to listen to people that really knew what they were talking about. So I learned a great deal. And so, Pizza Hut just, and I also had the opportunity to spend some time on the Frito-Lay side. I got some opportunity to spend some time on the bottling side with the other 2 brands as well, food brands. And so it was a great career. I got to spend time in finance, time in marketing, and really learned how to become what I would call a general manager, which really led to me becoming this national vice president of operations, where I had a number of restaurants. And at that time, we were down to 3 of us across the country that were running all the operations of Pizza Hut then. So a great opportunity. And so, one would say, was that your pinnacle of success? And the way I answer that is that, I still wasn't, believe it or not, I wasn't happy. What was going on with PepsiCo at the time was, unfortunately, is that, and now it's turned out to be a good deal, but they were going to spin off all the restaurants, which is now what's called Yum Brands. And so I was part of that process. I was part of the strategic team that went through that spin-off. And I saw, though, even though it was a good business decision, that it was going to make it very difficult for the people that were going to be left behind. It wasn't a good decision for some people because some people were going to lose jobs. And I just knew, this was something that I didn't think that I could stomach or that I wanted to continue. And by the way, it had been 15 years, and I didn't mention I moved 16 times in 14 years. So every time that there was someplace they wanted me to go, I went. And so I just knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I shocked them, and I resigned. They, in fact, kept me on the payroll for a while, thinking I was going to change my mind. I didn't. And I decided that I was going to go teach school. And then I finally was in a position where it didn't matter what I was going to get paid. It was all about what I was going back to do that I was going to really enjoy. So it'd been, gosh, that was in 1997. So it'd been a long time, and I didn't obviously have a certification, to teach school. And so I had to take some night courses at Johnson Community College, and I applied for a temporary certificate with the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri, and I started teaching elementary ed classes on a substituting basis. And I got to tell you, I remember how hard, because I was not a good kid, so I can remember how hard I was on substitute teachers. Well, they got me back. I swear. And so, but where I really enjoyed teaching and subbing at was really was over on the Missouri side, and it was inner city, people say inner city, but I mean this was great people that their kids. I mean, what I really got up and was excited about it today is that I knew in many cases that was the best time that kid was going to have was that day when they were in school. Because what happened before school and what happened after school, some of them homeless, that was going to be the best part of their day. So, you really worked hard that night and before class to make sure that you were going to really try and deliver a great experience for the kids. And I really thought, my wife, who had stuck with me with a number of moves along the way and such, and by the way, she's still with me yet. I told her, I said, this is what I want to do. She was an accountant, CPA. She'd been working with Ernst & Young, and we liked Kansas City, loved the area, and she said, well, maybe that's what we ought to do. And then, another curveball, right? So I get this call out of the blue from a gentleman that was one of the co-founders of Pizza Hut, and he had been talking, this just shows you how a story comes around, is he's having dinner in New York with now who was the president of Pizza Hut, who at that time was the chairman and CEO of all of PepsiCo. And they're having dinner, and he's telling him, founder of Pizza Hut, telling Steve that I was teaching. And he was telling, and I don't know how my name came up, but anyway, Frank told Steve, he goes, yeah, I just got the rights to Hawaii. And Steve said, well, Jeff's wife is from Hawaii. Now, what a small world, right? You ought to give him a call because I think he's teaching. So the next thing I get a call, and I thought this guy's joking, because of course I didn't know him. I'd met him, and he's kind of an icon, right? He brought pizza to America, right? He said, well, I'm no longer with Pizza Hut, obviously, which everyone knew. He goes, I'm a Papa John's franchisee. He goes, how'd you like to be my partner? So it was really a tough decision, but to leave teaching because I was enjoying it. But come on, guys, it was Hawaii, right? So there's beaches, water, and my wife's family, was all there and such. It was an opportunity to bring her back home to her family as well. And so we embarked on a journey where I was the operating partner, which means that you get a percentage of the business to go over and really operate the business. And what I liked about it is that I was allowed, my partner did not live there, I was allowed to actually do everything from real estate selection to construction to getting the stores open operationally and running them. And in about 3 years, we opened 17 Papa John's in Hawaii. And it was just it was a blur. I don't even remember. I know I got to sleep at home every night, but that was about all I remember. I mean, it was just, you're just going as fast as you can. And, we're happy there. Things were going well. And, I guess I do get a little restless. And I got restless again. And, family, and I love my family, but family's, it's a little difficult when you're living really close together, especially on the same island. So we decided that we would take the girls and we would, maybe go back to the mainland for a while. Honestly, we also wanted to give them the opportunity to be able to experience something other than Hawaii. And so we decided that I was going to do some consulting. And I looked at a couple of different opportunities, and someone that I knew from my past life said, hey, Krispy Kreme is having problems. They've just ousted the management team. There's a turnaround group. Really, it's a flood of accountants that go in and they kind of, they descend upon a company, and their sole purpose is to disassemble it in most cases and take it through bankruptcy, right? That's generally what happens. I met the individual that was serving as the chief restructuring officer, And I was so impressed with him. And just a quick bit about him. His name is Stephen Cooper. Steve was the Chief Restructuring Officer of Enron. He was the Chief Restructuring Officer of Winchester. He was the Chief Restructuring Officer of Sunbeam, Bluebird, and just most recently, a couple years ago, he's the one that turned around MGM, and currently is running Warner Music, Turner Warner Music. And he's 65 years old. And he just can't quit. He's got more money than the good Lord, you know, so he certainly doesn't need to work. But I met him and I thought, what a great opportunity to be able to work with someone like that has that type of experience. And so we really walked into a hornet's nest. Again, used to being in troubled situations, but this one was very troubled. And it was about to be just delisted off the stock exchange. There was irregularities in the accounting, there was all kinds of legal challenges that were going on, but more importantly, the company didn't have any money and it had been around for 75 years, and so we had to really get it recapitalized. And I'm proud to say what we were able to do, and I don't take credit for this, I was just part of the team, but we were really able to re-engineer a different business model, get out of all the other businesses that they had acquired, such as making coffee and making donut machines and you know, being in manufacturing, which they had no business being in, and really getting it down to their core competency, which was really selling donuts. And if you haven't seen the stock price of Krispy Kreme today, I think when I got there it was 2. And at one time it was 40, and I think it's about halfway back. So I think, you know, it's really came back a long ways. So then Krispy Kreme, and my contract was about to come up. They hired a new CEO. That wasn't the job I wanted, and I wasn't certainly a consumer packaged good type of person, and that wouldn't have been a good fit for me. So we brought in, and I was part of the selection process, brought in a CEO, and then I had to decide what I was going to do next. And that's when the whole thing with WellBiz Brands came along. So that is kind of the journey that got me to where I am today. But before I open it up for questions, what I would say is this, is that I've had the opportunity to be, I maybe didn't really get to spend the time in the classroom that I wanted to spend. And I'm not saying I'm too old to do that yet, because that may happen. But I've had an opportunity to be able to give back in a number of ways. And to be a teacher, and to be in business, and to be a student in business, and to be able to learn from some of the brightest minds in the industry. But we've also been able to do some things, and I give my credit to my wife for this as well, is that when we were in Hawaii, you know, we used as a platform, not to sell pizza, but we used as a platform, you know, is how can we help education in Hawaii? And, you know, one of the things when I met for the first time with the superintendent of schools, her name is Pat Hawamoto, and Pat, I asked her, I said, Pat, what's your biggest challenge with education in Hawaii? You won't be surprised by this. She said, getting kids to go to school. Surf's up, right? You know, hang loose, you know, surf's up. And, you know, and not only that, but, you know, people have to work so hard in Hawaii to make ends meet. It's so expensive to live there, so people are working 2 and 3 jobs, and the kids just don't get the attention. We put together a perfect attendance program that I don't even know what the numbers are, but when I left in 2005, we would give a free pizza to every child that made it to school every day by quarter. They get a free pizza. If they made it the whole year, they got a pizza party for their entire class and for their family. We gave, in 2005, we gave 100,000 pizzas away on the island of Oahu. 100,000, you know, and teacher appreciation program that we were able to work with other people within the community to be able to put a program together that allowed students, their peers, students, families, teachers' peers, administrators, to vote on people that had done an extraordinary job in the classroom. And we were able to put together a program where they got money and a lease of a car for a year and all kinds of different things. So business has given me the opportunity to be able to give back, even though I wasn't actually, you know, in the classroom. And so for the students out here, how many people are in education? for the education students here, everybody is looking for a great teacher in business. I will tell you that. So if you ever don't want to teach and you want to, you'll just teach in a different way. For those that, all those hands that went up in South Dakota, hey, that are from South Dakota, it's scary moving away. There's no doubt about it. But I will tell you that there's such a big world out there. So many experiences. Change is scary, but change is what makes people grow. And you have the opportunity to really experience all of that. So again, I appreciate the time, and if there's any questions.
So if we have any questions, I'll bring a mic back to you, and just go ahead and stand up.
None from the people that I grew up with.
Through all your different business experiences, and kind of this is a general question, but what would you equate that general success that you had throughout the last 40 years, or maybe, if you can narrow it down to a couple things?
Thanks for reminding me of the 40 years. I appreciate it. You know, I was asked a similar question earlier today. I think that I would probably equate to all the good things that have happened to me is, you know, really it's all about people. And it's not ever forgetting where you came from or who you are. And, you know, and just acceptance. And I think it's really always been about, you know, that for me is, you know, it's really about the people. It's the people that, you know, that make a difference. So.
In the back?
Besides your family, what would you say your biggest accomplishment is in business?
Biggest accomplishment?
Biggest accomplishment.
Oh, let's see. Biggest accomplishment in business.
Or most rewarding. Let's say most rewarding.
I guess probably the most rewarding was Hawaii taking something from nothing, you know, and no one knew what Papa John's was. So you really were there, and you had to really, even though it was a brand on the mainland, it wasn't a brand there, and so you really had to build a brand. That was something, and then I was so happy that people accepted me as part of the community. You need to know in Hawaii, it's not an easy place to live if you're, and what they call Caucasians in Hawaii is haoles. And so I was truly a haole over there. And my wife, being half Japanese, they call half and half, or mixed plate, is hapa. And it's very hard to get accepted there. People don't, you know, people think it's paradise. But if you peel back the military, where there's 125,000 military at any given time that are on the island, and then the business community, all the tourism, you know, and stuff, I mean, that business community is a very small one. So I would say that the most rewarding thing is that I was accepted for who I was. I got invited. I was so fortunate. I was asked to, I was a trustee for Queen Emma Foundation, which is what provides all the education and healthcare. There it's a $5 billion trust. I had the opportunity to sit on the hospital board. That was just something that didn't happen a lot over there. So that's probably what I was most proud of. Yes?
After listening to you, you seem like you're very much into vision. Where are you looking at taking your company now in the next 5 to 10 years? Is there a new trend going with wellness and fitness that we have not seen around here yet that you can give some insight on?
Yeah, I mean, a good example is, you saw Fit 36. It's high impact intensity training, HIIT, they call it. And it's, it has risen to the top 10 trends in the fitness industry, and we just started that concept about a year ago, I guess. And so we're going to continue to look for not fads, but to look for trends. We're, from an acquisition standpoint, that's really what my role is now, is looking for acquisitions and adding to our wellness brand. We're not going to do donuts. We're not going to do pizza or anything like that. It's going to really be wellness-based. But you know, yoga is really big. You know, obviously that's been around since history of time, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if you might see something like that coming along the way with wellness. But we really try to stay, one of the things with Elements Massage, for example, is that we do one thing, and we do one thing only, and that's massage. And our competitors, whether it's Massage Envy and Heights and others that many of you probably haven't heard of, they do facials and they do foot scrubs and they do all these other services and such. So whatever we do, it'll be focused in on a particular area that we know we can be good at. Yes.
So you had a couple years at UW. What was something you experienced here that you are now weaving through your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, one, it's a sense of accomplishment that I made it through school. So that's one thing. And if it wouldn't have been for Dakota Wesleyan, and I talked about Dr. Dross, and there was others that really made an impact with me along the way that kept me going. So I think that's setting me up for my future and what I ended up doing with my career was that I knew that I could accomplish anything. And, especially when it started with education, that I really didn't put a lot of effort in, and I found that I was capable of doing that. I think it put me in a position where I knew I could do other things and be confident that that I could succeed.
We have time for about one more question. Anyone else?
This is a quiet group.
It is. After lunch.
Got that $20 field.
Here.
Aside from moving, what have you found most challenging?
From moving?
No, I'm just saying, aside from moving 16
Oh,
times in
oh,
14
oh.
years or whatever, I would count, that might be considered challenging by some. By others, it's an opportunity. What have you found most challenging in the business space?
On a personal note, just trying to keep a balance, with in life in general, meaning to your family, to your beliefs, to your faith, all which are important to me, and being able to keep that balance and keep things in perspective, I think is probably the challenge, because when you're in distress situations, you're trying to turn around businesses and you're trying to bring people along with you to believe in what your vision is, you lay awake a lot thinking about it. You really do. If you don't, then you're not going to be very effective. People just can't switch it off. So being able to make sure that when you are there and you are at home with your family and you are with friends, that you're turning the rest of it off, for just a little while, because it's coming right back at you the next morning when you get up.
That's great. Well, Jeff has some family here. I just want to take a moment. It's your mother that's here? Is that correct?
Yes.
You want to stand up? Because behind every good person is a good mom. And her husband. Their next class rotation starts here shortly, but I welcome any of you who want to come up and ask Jeff some questions personally to do so after this. Please just join me in thanking Jeff for sharing his story about his journey with UW. Thanks very much, everyone.
Yeah.